Huh? Lord. Help us, Lord. Well, since my baby left me. I've got nothing on my right channel. It's there, but.
The Wade and Carter Show is a paid programming, and KHMC Magic 95 assumes no responsibility for its content, and the Wade and Carter Show bears all responsibilities for their opinions and guests on their show.
We'll talk Cuba. We'll talk sports. And it's Open Line Friday. Give us a call, 361-575-9509. All that and more coming up on the Wade and Carter Show. Good lots.
Hey, you know, when you start doing that and your voice starts getting higher and higher and higher, like, he better stop soon. He's going to run out of octaves. He can't go any higher.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
How are you today?
I'm excited. It's Friday. It's been a great week.
It has been.
It's not going to rain all day today, or maybe part of tomorrow.
Hope not.
Yeah.
We've had enough.
That'll show Noah. That guy out there in Bloomington building the ark. Ha! Jumping the gun, buddy. What do you got? I know the weather.
Okay.
Wade and Carter weather. The Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the equally optimistic folks at Deerland Feed. 79 degrees in Victoria right now, heading to a high of 90. 75 degrees in Victoria now.
Heat index values are going to be real high this afternoon. Pushing 110, like 20-degree swing just from the humidity. That's pretty nasty.
And no humor here. If you are, be self-aware. If you're a little bit older, if COVID has kept you out of your typical outdoor routine, in this heat, watch the heat. Don't get outside and get all dehydrated. I'm going to do something we don't do, Ash. And
what's that?
I'll let you be the judge.
I can't be the judge. I don't know if he's in yet.
But. Well, certainly the judge is in. Today, you handle this one. Today is my mother, Marion's, birthday.
We don't do that, but for your mom, we will make an exception.
Right. Happy birthday, Mama. I love you. Mom's, so she won't care. You know, you reach a certain age where you're like, that's right. I'll own it. I'm 83. How about that?
Nice.
She's 83 years old. More than the primary, but basically the caregiver for my dad.
Happy birthday to your mom.
Yep. She's tired, but always up for an adventure.
She's tired of you. Let's
yes.
be honest.
Yes. She feels like she's still raising me. Judge Posey, the challenge has been thrown down, sir. Get
this morning.
Get out of your pajamas. Meet us at about 8:15, 8:20 over at Las Palmas. You're the only person we're going to buy breakfast for. Anybody else that walks up and introduces themselves, we'll buy you a cup of coffee. We'll have a nice little set to over there at Las Palmas on Main Street as soon as the show is over.
Why Las Palmas?
Well, because Veracruz is closed for breakfast. If Veracruz was open for breakfast, that is their part. That's how they give back to the community. Because if Veracruz was open for breakfast, so many little taco stands and stuff would just go out of business.
Ricky King, good morning. David Glass is in. Marvin Mick is checking in. Sheriff Lauterbach, good morning to you. Andy Rhea Jr., Chris Conrad, happy Friday to you, sir. Lisa Poole's in.
I found a limited, is it cache or cachet? Of, like a little hidden treasure trove, if you will, of Wade and Carter caps.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I will be freely dispensing those to anybody who walks up and introduces yourself. Folks, we can't remember all of you.
Ask for a cap.
We're getting old. Say, hi, I'm so-and-so, can I have a cap? Hi, I'm James Kurth. Can I have a cap? He'll just take a cap. He's a karate guy.
Lisa Poole, good morning. Bob Watley, good morning. Justin Glass is in. Junior Samples.
Hi, Junior.
Scott Snow, Mike Bloschke,
Karen Webb,
Christina Wise, Jeff Finley,
Jeff, good morning, sir. What did Mike say?
Mike says, come out to the Quail Creek 16th annual barbecue cook-off this weekend.
Hey, that is a very well run and
It's the Quail Creek Volunteer Fire Department.
Yeah, it's right there. You just go out Business 59, and right before you get to the loop, you just take a right. Right there by that, what's that little store called? You know what I'm talking about, though. Right there by the
Windmill?
Yeah, it's right there by the elementary school.
Yeah, Walden's? No. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right there.
Right there. I know, yeah.
Right there at Walden's Pond.
Yeah.
Anyway, you take a right there, and you go up, and let me tell you, Bloschke runs this deal. And I had the privilege of being a judge.
Beans.
Folks, no, but this is I think it's ICBA.
Yeah,
sanctioned event. These are like they'll have some of the top 10. Some of the top 10.
James Curtis confirms Walden's. I was right.
Folks in that competition arena in the state will be there, and the food is phenomenal. And they're all giving away food. It's just a great time. Very, very well run, and make no mistake, for a great cause. Quail Creek they save you folks so much money by raising money that they are like the county's, they're part of the county's volunteer fire department extension, and these folks are priceless. So get out there for that. Fantastic. Great.
Tim Dodge is in. Good morning to you, sir. Junior Samples. Jason Moeller says he's enjoying his Friday off with Wade and Carter. Well, we're just getting started. We'll see if that holds true for the entire hour. Jeremy Pena, good morning. Yeah, we're going to get to some of the Arizona audit stuff because it's getting interesting, and we'll talk about that this morning.
Hats off to Jeremy Pena. Had a CAT scan. And we just talk. We're just like HIPAA-free environment here. We don't care about your.
We're not doctors.
Yeah. Pena went in and they did a CAT scan and they found nothing. So that
of his brain.
Well, that's really the sound waves and they're just echoed off the empty chamber. Yeah,
that's good.
But he's healthy.
Good.
He has no excuses. He'll be back on the road Monday.
Rob Moore Knipling, Terry Murray. Good morning. Anita Scroggins is in. Good group early on. So where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the fact that it took almost a week for the Biden administration to finally denounce what was going on in Cuba and the communist regime in Cuba?
Yeah, I still can't get my head around what, and this is not being anti-Biden. I don't blame Joe Biden for anything that's happening in Cuba. Or the administration or the Democrats. I mean, it's too easy to be like slinging around partisan arrows here. But Ash, how do you explain the Department of Homeland Security, this Mayorkas guy, who we talk to Sheriff Louderback often, and Sheriff Louderback can't say Mayorkas without kind of like his eye closing and his cheek kind of, it's like you slapped him in the face. He says, Mayorkas. That this guy is just so sympathetic, empathetic to everything happening at our southern border. Stream over, come on in. It's not your fault. We'll give everybody political asylum. There's people begging, willing to risk their lives to get off the island of Cuba. And he's going, don't come here. We don't want you here. I don't understand that.
There's people walking and marching in the streets of Havana and rallying against communism, and it takes a week for the Biden administration to say anything when the police are shooting into these crowds, when people are being just whisked away because they're suspected of being a political dissident.
Yeah.
This started Sunday, and I think it was yesterday afternoon sometime, the Biden administration finally says something.
Well, and James Curtis points it out. He says the Biden administration has to get permission from their handlers before they say anything.
That was where I was going to go with this. Is it took them 5 days to negotiate with the communists and Marxists that actually run our Democratic Party at the national level to come up with some sort of phrasing that would denounce what's going on in Cuba.
Yeah, they don't want to admit that they don't want the communists from Cuba to come here because those communists aren't trying to spread communism. They're trying to get away from it. And our own Democratic Party is trying to lead you towards it.
Well, because they're not communists. That's kind of like
their victims. 62 years, something like the 61 years.
I mean, it's kind of like what happened during the Cold War, and we painted a broad brush of everybody in the Soviet Union being a communist. No, they weren't all communists. The communists were the ones in power. Everybody else was just being held down, and
there were a few like you that were just opportunistic. Like you, to say that you were a double agent, it really minimizes your skill set, because I mean, I know the
short sells me.
Yeah, there were lots and lots of, you were a info to the highest bidder kind of guy.
Quadruple, quintuple,
sure.
Agent didn't matter.
Yeah. And there were 5 zeros before the 7.
Pyramid scheme sometimes. Absolutely. I'll sell you that information, and then but I'll give you a return on it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And not only will I take your bad intel back to my boss, but I'll give you the reality for a price.
Yeah.
But with all humor aside, right, you agree that kind of stuff did happen, right? That did happen.
Oh, yeah.
So is it possible, is it plausible that what's going on in Cuba right now, all you would have to have on an island that size really is a couple of hundred people. You recruit a couple of hundred people. You don't have to give them much, people. You give them a little food and maybe a transistor radio. They're on your side.
Tried that in the 60s.
They're on your side. And here's what you do. You get them to take it to the streets with their friends, talking about freedom, Cuba Libre, right? And that pawn has been now moved onto the board. I think that it's very possible that the folks who actually typically profit from civil unrest put Cuba in play to see what happens here. And it wouldn't surprise me at some point if it wasn't the Republicans. And I'm being serious. Our own Republicans may have put Cuba in play to expose the hypocrisy at our southern border.
No,
I don't trust the Republicans either.
No, I think it's just, I think people are, I mean, they shut down the internet in Cuba. The only ones
turned their electricity off at 6 at night.
Yeah. I mean, I think people in Cuba are just finally fed up. And you've got enough of them that are willing to stand up and be killed for freedom.
Well, if you think about it, you're already, they've been under communist rule since 1959, 60. There's an entire generation of people. So I was born in 62. So now the people that are riding are my kids' age, who are now in their 20s. And they're like, wait a minute, Dad, you put up with this all your life? Yeah. That's the way it was. Yeah. Now the Castros are gone. There's no more demagogue, if you will. People are like, hey, I'm not going to blindly follow this dictator. He's human too. He died. They're saying, hey, we want to be free.
Kevin Leininger says why Cubans aren't given the same entrance to the U.S. as the millions already that they've let in. They understand communism will be more likely to vote Republicans, and that's
exactly right.
We talked about that
exactly
this week. That's exactly the reason. Yet.
And isn't that sad? I mean, people's lives, generations of Cubans affected by party politics, by the party, really, by the Democrats who want to include you, who want everybody to be happy.
And yet, you go back to the 70s and there were no such similar concerns in Vietnam. James Kurth asks, whatever happened in Haiti? Has no one connected anything? Wink, wink. I'm
another.
I know it's the next island over, but I'm not 100% sure that there's really much. I'm not sure that there's a Cuba-Haiti connection here. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. As long as they don't mess with the Dominican farm clubs.
And here's what Black Lives Matter has to say on the whole thing. They condemn, and this is from their tweet, they condemn the U.S. federal government's inhumane treatment of Cubans and urges it to immediately lift the economic embargo.
Here's my question. And I'm just
let's not speak out against the Marxists and communists. Oh, because you can't, because your founders are Marxists.
Dude, let's just slow our roll for a second. Does anybody really give a rat's pookie parts what the Black Lives Matter thinks about Cuba? Can we just stop for a minute? What's next? Black Lives Matter is going to talk about restrictor plate racing in NASCAR? I couldn't care any less what BLM thinks about anything, much less the Cuba situation. Good morning, Wade and Carter. Trying to help us out.
Hey, how you doing, Brent? This is Peter.
Hey, Peter.
How are you, Pete?
How are you, sir? Pete McNally, folks. Good morning, my
Good
friend.
morning, Peter.
How are you? Did you call to apologize for being so wrong yesterday about immigration?
No,
Yes, sir.
there's many good living. He's retired now, but he's made a good living in immigration, doing immigration work.
Yes, sir.
And he said it got blown out of proportion. He said, they just got bigger nets out there now. He said that's the reason it's more captured. So he's got bigger nets. And, most people from the valley have been going on for years. Many people have hired a lot of the illegals over the years.
How do you feel about that? What do you think? Yeah, I mean, I used to live down there as well. What do you think about?
I know you live in Oregon. I know about that.
What do you think about folks hiring illegals? Is that a good thing? I mean, they got to eat too. I've always felt like if they're here, you got to feed them, you got to educate them, you got to let them have a chance to make a living.
Yeah, it's a way of life in South Texas. I grew up in Nueces County, but I spent a lot of time in Duval County and some time in Britt County.
I'm not surprised that you're in Duval County. Were you in Duval County back in the late 40s, early 50s? Were you around the Duke of Duval back in the day?
Yeah, I know. I worked in Freer. He was highly respected.
Yes, sir.
When I got there from Houston, I was working at Oilfield Supply, and they told me, you don't talk about the Duke around here.
Right.
I don't care what you think about George Farm, you don't talk about it around
Right.
here. But anyway, my friend basically said, he didn't say much ado about nothing, but he did say, it is a problem. There's no question about that. He questioned to me, and he said that's an estimate. He said anybody can make an estimate.
Right.
But, he thinks it's kind of ever since Trump said rapists, drug dealers, that started this whole thing. And the wall, and all this thing about the wall and everything.
Yes, sir.
So, I don't know if it's going to go away or not, but he said basically it's just like, there's more people fishing out there, so you're going to catch more illegals. You've got a lot of people working on it right now, which you didn't have in the past. It was kind of, the government kind of just looked the other way for many, many, many years, as you guys know, with anything about South Texas.
That is definitely true.
But if the government is estimating that of those apprehended, they were letting about 45%. That was about 55% of the numbers. We're catching more, which means the number, if that number is static, there's still more people flooding over the border than in the past. If we were only catching 15,000 or 17,000 in a month, and that's roughly, just for easy math's sake, half of those that are coming across. And now we're catching 170,000 a month, and that's half of those coming across. It's not because we're not throwing more people out there because there's fewer people crossing. We're throwing more people out there because there's more people crossing. That's why there's a bigger net.
You're getting some good reviews, Pete. Most of our listeners are saying hi, Pete, and they applaud you for calling in, sir.
Well, I don't have all the answers. My friend doesn't either. He's semi-retired now. But most of his immigration work was with professionals, with doctors, nurses, engineers. But he knows.
Yeah, the people that aren't sneaking across the border.
Hey, I figured
Those are the people that aren't sneaking across the border.
I figured he'd have done that pro bono, just being a good Democrat. He'd probably just do that.
Here's the answer to me, Pete. You enforce the laws we have. And we stop extending the definition of asylum to people who feel oppressed. And I find it hard to,
listening to us
every morning.
I want to tell you that with all sincerity, and you know this. I mean, there's the on air and there's the off the air, but we really appreciate you. I appreciate your willingness to be the quote unquote naysayer. Where's Pete McNally on this? And we kind of, it's a generic term for the left, but we appreciate you taking the time to call.
How's your golf game out in East Texas?
It's non-existent. COVID kind of killed it. I was playing with a bunch of old they're slowly coming back, but, I haven't played much lately.
Well, watch out for the mosquitoes, sir. Those Beaumont mosquitoes, they've got landing lights. Yes, sir. Right. Well, hey, the next time you make it to Victoria, you give us a heads up, and we'll take you to Veracruz, sir. All
Awesome.
right.
Thanks,
Hey,
Peter.
you take care of
Appreciate it.
yourself. Folks, that is now right there. You got to give props where props are due. That is a man that we have fun with and give a hard time to, and we've labeled him kind of the standard of the left on the program. And hats off to Pete McNally for being, as you all heard, the gentleman that he is. He took the time to call. He's got a sense of humor, and what a fine guy. What did Kelly Farley say?
She says, why the larger net disproportionately involving cartels, humans, drugs, and sex traffickers? They aren't all masons, ranchers, farmers, maids, and lawmen.
Well, until we had Sheriff Louderback come on, I totally had the different perspective. I mean, did you? I don't know what your perspective was, Ash, but it never crossed my mind that there is a significant, if not dominant, percentage of these people that are being trafficked, some into sex slavery, some into indentured servanthood, some being, forced to work in restaurants for
To pay
substandard
off their
wages.
loans or their debt to the cartels for getting them here.
And I believe, much as we talked about earlier, that, whether or not it was an insurrection, whether or not it was an attack on democracy, anybody who was involved in the melee, the mess, the fracas at the Capitol on January the 6th ought to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. If you employ illegals, especially someone who's involved in indentured servanthood, that they're forced to work for somebody, you ought to be prosecuted. Americans, Ash and I.
Well, they're not telling you, okay, you're going to go work at this restaurant. They own the restaurant. They're
Right.
putting them to work in their places where they're not only, they're laundering humans in a way,
And where the
but they're
cartel
using
has
it to
money.
launder money. Exactly.
The cartel launders their money through this, and it's really no different than in the big picture than if Americans would just quit snorting all the coke. There wouldn't be so much coke in America. I mean, Americans, typically the age of personal responsibility has passed. Nobody says, they're like, why do they keep sending so many drugs over here? Because they're all doing the drugs. Come on, man.
Well, there's some truth to that. Absolutely.
What did Jeremy Pena say?
There are guys here on work perms saying that they hate all the people coming in illegally. Some of the guys that he works with that have, I guess, legal work permits are processing into legal citizens. They don't want handouts. They want a better life. He sponsors them through his business.
You wait until the midterm elections. You're going to see a sea of red like you've never seen before in this country.
The problem is nothing will change then, because all that will happen is President Biden will then veto any bill that comes forward just to try to kill any of the spending. We're going to be, it'll be a mess until 2024 when we finally get, well, and I'm not even sure, unless we get the right Republican president or the right president, I'm not even going to put in a party label on it. Somebody that actually stands up for the values of this country. Equal opportunity, rebuilding and allowing for the American dream to happen.
Well, where do you stand on this?
And to cut the spending in the big government and get us and stop taxing us to death. Till that happens, nothing's going to change in Washington, D.C. And the swamp is the problem. The people that are so ingrained, and now you see it with this Mark Milley guy who was concerned about a coup and trying to stop it. If President Trump got reelected again, this was a CNN report earlier this week. To me, the only coup that was getting prepared for was guys like Milley in the military ready to take over this country.
Well, so let me ask, and especially you listeners, if you have a comment, love to have you call 575-9509. But here's my comment with you. I had a conversation just yesterday with someone that I consider a national political insider and someone who I just am not afraid to ask a dumb question to. And I said, my current thought is that Donald Trump's message rings true and truer now than ever with most Americans. But is Donald Trump the ideal messenger? Are there still Main Street conservative Democrats who will simply say, I just can't vote for Donald Trump? Are we better in the long run having a ticket of, let's say, DeSantis and Jim Jordan out of Ohio? Now you've got Florida and Ohio. You've got the South and the North. You've got, fiery and aggressive and pragmatic in the form of Jordan. Do you run that party ticket? Because if Donald Trump announces he's running in 24, you're going to see in a landslide victory Greg Abbott win simply because Donald Trump showed him the favor of coming to Texas. And that's Trump's guy. And whether he endorses him or not, it's Trump's guy. Abbott will win in a landslide come election day. The other guys are fighting over crumbs. And I love Allen West. Love him. But Abbott's going to just destroy the field. So when you look at that fact, if Donald Trump announces I'm running in 24, the party's going to fall in line behind him. Who's going to say, I'm running against you, Donald, because you're just not the right messenger? Can you see Donald with that smug look? Then we have a fractured Republican Party. And Trump's not the guy with the ego that says, you know what, I'll step aside. I'll support you. He ain't going to do that. He'll fight to the end, and we'll have a destroyed party. Thank you, caller. I had run out of wit.
You ran out of it before you started talking.
Right? Stop. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Is Brother Gary there?
He's not here yet.
Who have we got?
Brother Gary there?
No, he won't be here till after 8 o'clock.
Who's this?
Oh, I'll phone him back.
Okay.
Okay.
Another highly politically charged Magic 95 listener.
Jeremy Pena, we talked about that. Clayton Meyer says indentured servitude has been going on for a long time. Remember Refugio just a few years ago?
Yeah.
Rob Moore-Knipling says to simplify the immigration issue, follow law. Always mind-blowing that we rarely discuss the actual law, but instead talk about all the levels of which we can circumvent the law. Absolutely.
Well, that's a brilliant point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well said,
James
Bob.
Kerr says that's an interesting strategy with the Florida-Ohio ticket.
Yeah, I'm just saying, is Donald Trump, if he says I'm running, don't you think that, de facto, he gets the nomination? Don't they just have a big celebration party for 45?
I don't think so. And part of me says he's going to be, 76, 77 years old at that time?
The comment was made, he feels that it was taken from him. He does believe that, and he wants those 4 years back.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
You want 4 years back? Just finance your car for 6 years at Atzenhover.com, Chevy, Cadillac, Mazda, Mitsubishi, all service, all makes them all.
They can help you, though.
GMAC.
Yeah, they could.
Take years and years to pay, no money down, all rebates assigned to dealer. Reach out to Atzenhover today. They'll help you. Cadillac, Mazda, Chevy, Mitsubishi. They have now several gently pre-owned, spotlessly gorgeous Escalades on the lot, and a handful of pickups. Some are already lifted and all that. When you start looking,
I haven't looked this week for my used car.
Yeah, there's like $10,000 worth of tires and wheels on some of these vehicles. You got to go by and check them out. White Trash Services, 550-1826. That's where Arizona's trying to put all the ballots in a roll-off dumpster right there outside of Mesa, Casa Grande, Phoenix, Tempe. Get out there. Chandler. Yeah.
Surprise.
It's all one big city. Reach out to White Trash Services at 550-1826. BJ Nelson and her team will make your day better. Razor IT Solutions, JP Hull. He can sure help you with your analytics. He can help you with your data, encryption, keeping folks out of your web page, helping you develop a better web page.
Keeping folks from trying to even get to into your website.
Right. It's kind of like putting a VCS security system sticker in your front yard, one of those signs in your front yard. Why wouldn't the guy just go to the next house? That's what you want. The sign is as big a deterrent as the cameras and the surveillance system. But reach out to VCS. Let them come out and help you That, and, if you want the system,
I don't know. There's enough of these idiots out there that continue to get caught on camera that continue to end up showing up on YouTube. So there's no deterrent.
I pay $54 a month for two 1080p zoomable cameras that record data. I can go back weeks and pull up when you came to the house. It's uncanny, and the value is there. You just need to reach out to the VCS companies for all your surveillance and security needs. Rocket Oilfield Services, JR and his team will help you with right-of-way clearing, all that. Chesnick Furniture, 70 years in downtown Victoria.
101 years in business.
Reach out to Bobby Leon. Let Bobby help Love and you and Chesnick make your house a home. He can do that. They'll deliver it today. 50% off all furniture. What else you got?
I'm
talking about Veracruz.
Yep.
Today's your last day.
Last day for the week to get into Veracruz.
And look, I'm going to tell you one more time. If Veracruz had breakfast, we wouldn't be going to Las Palmas, but we're going today. If you come by Las Palmas at any time after about 8:20 when we get there, walk up and introduce yourself. We'll buy you a cup of coffee. You can sit and visit with Ash. I promise. I won't bother you. You can visit with Ash.
You'll be too busy stuffing your face.
You can talk about Ash being named the NAIA Athletic Directors Association president. Very proud of him. He never, ever toots his own horn. He toots occasionally in the studio. Doesn't toot his own horn.
Never.
And fantastic job that he does at UHV. Very, very, my mother yesterday, and again, happy birthday, Mom. My mother yesterday said, Ash keeps getting all these accolades. Somebody's going to come here and scoop him up. And I said, you know what? He's happy here. He's part of Victoria.
True story.
For extra 15, 20 grand a year, he might go to Kingsville.
Be
I don't
happy
know.
somewhere
Just
else.
saying, he'd be happy somewhere else. Spread the love, baby.
Never know.
Anyway, and by the way,
Kelly probably says stop with the talk. You might cause a rash of VCS sign theft.
right? People just steal the sign. I was going to say it's $54 for the system.
Is that a more deterrent, or is this house protected by Smith and Wesson more?
Well, I tell you what, it's as Sheriff Lauderbeck says, you're on thin ice when you pull that weapon. But hey,
Yeah.
it's my ice. Don't come to my house with ill intentions.
James Kerr said he'd love to have some breakfast with you. We're not buying breakfast, James.
Yeah,
Coffee. We'll buy you the coffee. You're on
Yeah.
your own for the breakfast. Although I don't know, maybe the breakfast is cheaper than the coffee.
he's training.
He's training at Future Marine at 0800. Only, yeah. Could have just said 8 o'clock for the rest of us. But now he's going to go military time on us.
He'll have the camouflage paint all over his face and everything.
So you're not going to find this anywhere else, but an interesting piece in the Western Journal yesterday, coming on the heels of some news last week that really we meant to talk about, didn't get there, but voter irregularities in Georgia. But I'm not sure this one can be as avoidable coming out of Maricopa County in Arizona. 74,000 ballots, mail-in ballots that they were not able to basically verify.
74,000.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that is enough to flip the. And they didn't say whether they were voting Republican or Democrat. They just 74,000 mail-in ballots that were unverifiable. A bunch of attempts to get into some of the voting software sites where there's only a handful of users, I think 8. Yet they had a whole bunch of people trying to get into that site.
Unauthorized people hacking in.
Trying to access. Yeah.
Laser IT solutions.
Yeah, definitely. What were some of the other things that they found? Discrepancies in voter rolls between those that were registered to vote and some of those that voted. Different voter rolls a month after the election. People that, I'm assuming because they reported this, that people were added to the voter rolls after voter registration was over. Just a lot of things are going to come out in Arizona. And of course, the Dems there were putting up roadblocks, which makes you wonder, because to me, there's two outcomes. We've got a secure election, or we've got election fraud and it needs to be fixed. I don't care. Again, to me, this part isn't party politics. This is election integrity.
Right.
But Dems are fighting it. And you have to ask yourself why.
Well, here's a question for our
they
listeners.
sued.
Do our listeners believe that voting falls under the umbrella of states' rights. How the state of Texas handles its elections is the state of Texas business. Or are you content to defer that authority to the federal government for federal elections? Do you believe that the federal government, with their long history of tremendous success in everything they touch, should the federal government be in charge of how we vote in Texas and how the votes are tabulated? Because Joe Biden said just the other day, this is not about, this is a quote, this is not about who gets to vote or how they vote. This is about who counts the votes. Doesn't that sound like something Putin would say? It's a paraphrase of a comment made by Joseph Stalin, by the way, that Joseph Stalin said it doesn't matter who takes the votes. It matters who counts the votes. If that doesn't make you a little bit anxious coming from Joe, who can't remember which shoe to put on which foot, that ought to trouble you as an American, not as a Republican, not as a Democrat. It would trouble me if Donald Trump, with his penchant for power, were to say the federal government needs to manage the voting process. Boy, the left would be screaming, he's trying to become a dictator. And you know what? They might be right. But because it's just benevolent Joe, nobody seems to think that the Democratic Party would be trying to become a dictator.
Well, because it's only a problem if the right side of the political spectrum does it. It's not a problem if the left side tries to do the things that they've accused the right of doing, which we found to be the case to be, Russia, who was in bed with Russia.
Torn Bills, 8:15, 8:20, Las Palmas. Come on by, have a cup of coffee on Wade and Carter.
Yeah, not breakfast.
Yeah, we're not making breakfast. But then again, Torn Bills might just buy everybody's breakfast. He's that nice a guy.
Put the pressure on.
Can we get back to that BLM thing? What do you people think about BLM injecting themselves into the conversation about
Here's
Cuba?
the funny thing, and this is part of it. They blame the American government has only instigated suffering for the country's 11 million people.
Dumbest comment ever.
Cuba has historically demonstrated solidarity with oppressed peoples.
Like the Cubans are wearing BLM t-shirts. The BLM movement, folks, really needs to go away.
Yeah. Now we look to President Biden to end the embargo, something Barack Obama called for in 2016. The embargo is a blatant human rights violation. It must come to an end. I would think the blatant human rights violations are the police shooting into crowds of protesters. I would think the blatant human rights violations are taking the money that has been given to those governments by other countries so that the leaders can live high on the hog.
Yes, sir.
And everybody else in squalor and shanty towns. There's your blatant human rights violations. The lies that they're all educated and have free health care, yet they can't access any of it.
Peter McNally says he agrees with Ash. Why not with me, Pete? He said, let's be fair. States should run the elections with federal guidelines.
No, but that's where the Biden administration is going. They don't want the states. They're trying to consolidate power under the federal government.
You know why? Here's why. Well, hey, man, tell me I'm wrong. Hey, man, everybody's voting, and everybody's voting at these predetermined federal voting sites. And, we've got a real vote here. We don't need the Electoral College. We've got one man, one vote. America, one big district for the president. It's just one man, one vote. Let's get rid of that Electoral College. That's what's coming next. Yeah. Don't forget, Daddy told you. Reach out to the law offices of Steve Kidder. If you're a Cuban and you need some help, he can help you find somebody. Immigration lawyer, somebody can help you. Steve Kidder can do what you need done. The law offices of Steve Kidder. We have a lot of fun with Steve, but Steve takes his craft very seriously, and he's very, very good. I'll talk to Stephen about a serious issue, and usually about 3 or 4 questions in, I'm like, wait a minute, I need to get an interpreter because he just knows more about most stuff than I do. Get to the health bar right here on Red River, and or get over to the place up by Buffalo Wild Wings for all your supplements, paninis, wraps, fruit bowls. They have prepackaged, macroed out meals for those that are seriously working out. They've got those up on the north side in a cooler, and it's beautiful. They have salmon, they have beef, the chicken. It's gorgeous. Get up there and check it out. They are only getting bigger, only getting stronger, and we like to think we're helping them do that. So that gets us pretty much caught up on the brakes. Special thanks to JP for all of his advice.
Went
this week.
services.
Oh, you want to just do the
Went?
you want to do the
No,
whole?
we're almost there.
Well, there we are.
I figured
Okay.
we were getting.
Well, real quick.
I figured that's where you're going.
Went services, went electrical, went plumbing, generators. Storm season is here. Now this year it may last until with that
Next June.
with that
Next June.
moon twerk. It could last till next
Wobble,
June.
moon wobble.
Wobble, wobble, wobble. Reach out to Went Services for all your general plumbing and emergency needs. Reach out to them for you need a new plug in a barn like Ash did. They can come out and
They
take
come
care
out
of
and
that
do
for you.
that for you as well. Yep.
Fantastic people, easy to deal with, and they stand by their pricing. USA Concrete Coatings, go to their Facebook page. They have a new garage up, and it's like without the lights on, pop. It just pops at you. They took that, they cleaned that floor, they sealed the cracks in that floor, Ash, and then they put down a tough polyurethane coat that's stronger than epoxy. Four times
strong.
Won't fade, won't crack, won't stick to your car tires. Remember,
UV resistant.
yeah. Beautiful, beautiful work. A great product. And USA Concrete Coatings is the leader in that industry. And then, of course, Cheryl at the Gray Barn. 920-6803, 920-6803,
It's a number to call for
920.
all your decorating for an event. Cheryl can
6803.
handle it.
But
Stay tuned. She's going to have some pictures coming up probably in the next week or two from some stuff this weekend. It's going to be good.
yep, for sure, don't forget Terry Murray either. Modern Mortgage,
Absolutely not.
541-5454.
Terry can help you with all your mortgage questions. She'll answer all your questions. She'll be patient with you. If you're, kind of mortgage inept like I am, she'll answer all your questions.
As Moses Malone would say, 541-5454. Reach out. Remember that when he said faux, faux, faux? And that's how the Rockets won it back in 95. Before that. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I think it
92.
was before
92. Anyway, Terry Murray will help you. When she shops, they say when banks fight, you win. Well, Terry Murray knows all the banks. So reach out to them.
She'll fight for you to get the best mortgage rate for your mortgage situation, whether buying a new home, refinancing, whether you're a veteran, first-time home buyer, she can help you with all the products.
Craig Simpson says, happy Friday, y'all.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. And all I can say is I'm sorry.
That's a shout out to the last weekend of the Calgary Stampede going on this weekend in Calgary. They've had some nice weather. Typically, they don't always get the nice weather for the Stampede. Kinney County, a little bit ticked off with Governor Abbott. They've asked, they declared the local state of disaster in April, asked Governor Abbott for some help.
They want some money.
And
What
they've
happened?
come up with a solution that has not been even discussed, reproached by the governor. He's not called him up, said anything, but they basically said, we want to take matters into our own hands along our county border, which is probably the state border and the federal border at the same time, right?
Right.
And they've come up with a solution that would not require, they need help with state funding, which supposedly is available via this emergency declaration, right?
Yes, sir.
As it's been explained to me. They want to contract out with observation towers, basically a private security firm that would assist in the apprehension and holding up because they would have the power to do so. And these private security firms would then hold anybody that determine illegally in Kinney County for immigration officials. Observation towers, motion detection, light.
No.
They think in Kinney County alone, 2 to 3 weeks after getting this system up and running, they would have Kinney County's issues pretty much under control and eliminated, which means they would just be pushing them off to the
So I was going to say, so at
counties.
the governor's level, is this not like putting out the ant bait and it doesn't really kill the ants, it just moves them to the next neighbor's yard? Is that why the governor's not too enthused
Well,
about
but
it?
if you then do that to the next county, next thing you know, this is New Mexico's problem, not Texas'
and
problem.
Louisiana's problem,
How are you going to get to
I
Louisiana
don't know.
except by boat, right?
right?
But if the federal government is going to solve the problem, do I really care if this becomes New Mexico's problem when it's so much a problem? Yes, I care, but until the federal government gets involved and wants to solve the problem, enforce the laws as they exist, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, it's that easy.
Right.
Then I'm all for Texas taking care of the problem itself. And if it becomes New Mexico's problem or Arizona's problem, that's on them.
I want to address one that it does make me laugh, and he's doing it tongue in cheek. But our friend Adam Daughtry says, before you know it, the whole show is going to be an hour worth of advertising. By the way, Adam, I offer this if you'd like to take a day and just sponsor that day. You can work out an EFT where you don't even think about it; it just comes out of your checkbook. But it is uncanny. There's very little talk radio that's done locally, but in the mornings when I get in the car, there used to be a guy on named Matt Ray. It was called America's First News. And I would get in the car at, say, 6:15. And from 6:15 to 6:18, like I would get a little news. I've told you this before. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, at like 6:18, they would start talking about CBD oil. And then they would talk about hooked on phonics and the tea that makes you go. And I'm not exaggerating. Ash and I talk every morning at 6:30. And I would be driving. And for the next 12 minutes, it was commercials.
Yeah.
That is crazy, Tim.
Yeah, we're not anywhere close to that.
We give everybody 30 seconds a day.
And they do that 12 minutes, 4 breaks or 3 breaks an hour.
It's unbelievable. Then they'll come on and have a guest for 2 minutes, and then they go back to a quick commercial brought to you by. We're proud not to do that. And by the way, our advertising rates haven't gone up in the 5 years that we've been on the air. Very proud of what we've done here. What do you got there?
I was just looking to see if there's anything else. Major League Baseball, I think Astros back in action.
Yeah, Sox and Yankees postponed yesterday due to COVID protocols. I think
USA basketball against Australia, I think that game was postponed because of COVID.
What do you make of
Tokyo Olympics going to be in some trouble maybe?
Coach Popovich coaching the American team, they played exhibition games. Now, I don't know who they played, maybe the Baylor women. I don't know. UConn. They dropped their first 2 games, and that's the first time that they've done that since NBA players started playing on the team. Who could you get together?
Astros and the White Sox tonight.
But who could you get together that's going to beat the United States Olympic team that's full of NBA players?
Well, because every other team in the Olympics is full of NBA players now, too. I mean, there's a lot of Australians playing in the NBA. There's a lot of, Lithuanians playing in the NBA.
Are we
not a cakewalk like it was when –
Is the NBA championship, has it already happened?
No, I think it's tied at 2.
Is this a championship?
Yeah, so much.
Who's in the finals?
That I do know. The Suns and the Bucks. I mean, we're going back to the 80s.
Wow. Charles Barkley, Jason Kidd, Allen Iverson. No, Iverson was with
Jack Sigma? No, he wasn't with the Bucks.
Sigma was with the Bucks, wasn't he? Before he went to Seattle?
Maybe, yeah. Might have been.
You remember that?
He gave that away?
No,
he was in Portland.
But do you remember how Sigma would get the ball down on the block? He pivots. He'd switch pivot feet.
He was a poor man's Larry Bird,
in
a way.
A really poor man's Larry Bird. What is James Bird? Yeah. Did you watch the golf tournament yesterday? I know Jeff Fonseca did. How about
Colin Morikawa leading today? He's 9 under.
Wow. They were saying yesterday that no way that if Jordan Spieth continues to hit fairways and putts the way he's putting, that he'll win.
Morikawa went 6 under today to go with his 3 under yesterday, so he fired a 64 today. I'm guessing
he's already done. He's in the house.
Well, it's noon over there.
Good point.
1 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess, almost 2.
So,
I'm guessing the conditions haven't reared their ugly head yet for them to be shooting 6 under and 5 under.
I'm used to watching them play like in the perfect storm where the wind's blowing. Did you see this? Even if you're not a golf fan, I'd love to hear what you folks think about this. Bryson DeChambeau. No, he's the guy that stands really like this, and he's got a very unique swing. And for those of you that don't play golf, there's different degrees of or variances of flex in a golf shaft. Those of us that get a little older, we use a regular shaft. It's got a little bit more pop to it. The younger guys like a stiff shaft because it reduces inflection. When you get the club to the top and you start swinging hard, the club wants to twist, and the shaft will actually bow. Okay, so yesterday DeChambeau says, I'm struggling with it. He's missing fairways all over the golf course. And he's just like scientifically discussing the arc effect of his shaft and the fact that it's adding loft to his club. And he goes, if I'm not hitting this thing, I mean, right in the sweet spot, it's the effect on my ball is much worse than it is on any of my playing because I'm swinging harder than everybody. If I catch it a little bit in the toe, I mean, it is gone. Okay, so he's bitter and he's deriding Cobra, his sponsor, on worldwide TV at the biggest venue in European golf. Man, the folks at Cobra answered in a hurry. And they said, we have rarely heard a player say anything so stupid. He goes, here's a guy who's hitting a ball.
You won't be playing with
Yeah, they're going to cut him off, man. He goes, he's got a 5-degree loft on a ball that's coming off the club face at 200 miles an hour. The tolerances, what they basically said is, why doesn't he just back off a little bit and hit it right down the middle of the fairway? Instead, he's got to hit it 360 no matter where it goes.
Well, what he really needs, if he's going to continue to swing like that, are like 1995 set of King Cobra XLs that have some forgiveness.
Right. But it is
player improvement irons is what he needs.
It's not an optical illusion when you see these guys at the
No,
bottom
not
and
at
that
all.
shaft is bent this way. He almost needs to figure out how to make the club where he wants it at that moment as opposed to at address. I'd love to talk to Fonzie about that. He was not – he said, my driver sucks. Yeah. And Cobra said, no, you suck. Yeah. And I'm telling you, man, this is not going to go away. This DeChambeau guy.
Who's going to want him if he doesn't mend that with Cobra? He's going to be playing what they call blanks on the tour.
But, you know,
he might have.
TaylorMade probably called him today and said, hey, come into our studio. Let's figure out how to do it. And we'll pay you $10 million to use our driver. Here's why. They can say, if we can solve DeChambeau's problem, we can solve yours. Yeah. How about that? It'd be curious. This guy's kind of becoming the bad boy of golf. He and Brooks Koepka have like a little feud going on. It's craziness.
Bad boy golf that wears a 1970s taxi cab.
Now Dr. says Golf Hour brought to you by Happy Gilmore.
Golf lessons. We didn't talk about this, did we, earlier in the week with the California judge putting the pin on or putting the blame on the gun manufacturers rather than the shooter?
Is that crazy? I mean, so they've decided now, and I didn't read all of the details because I can't fathom any situation where guy goes in, buys a gun legally, buys a gun at a gun shop, goes out, loads it, just randomly starts shooting people.
But didn't he modify it?
I don't even know. I'm trying to take the most benign situation. How are you going to sue the gun manufacturer? I failed my test. I'm suing the pencil company. Same thing. I mean, exactly the same thing. My grandmother died in surgery. I'm suing the scalpel manufacturer. What happened to the personal responsibility of the person wielding the weapon, tool, pencil? You know, now if it's a
plaintiff alleges the gun maker used misleading marketing to attract impulsive young women with military complexes, leading to a synagogue shooting there in 2019.
Sue the ad agency.
Judge Kenneth Metal of the Superior Court of San Diego County rejected an argument by Smith & Wesson claiming lawsuits are prohibited under the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act.
It's just another...
saying that the gun maker had misleading marketing that violated California's unfair competition law and therefore plaintiffs can sue.
Just an in run at the Second Amendment.
You know, kind of. But then again, we don't have any, I mean, Greg Garcia says, so by that rationale, people can sue McDonald's for making them fat.
Absolutely. Because they used marketing that said that the Mayor McCheese McMuffin was good for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So why is it I'm being sincere. Is it a Texas thing that we just get that? Do you think that somewhere and I'm just using this as an example, in Seattle or Portland. They're like, yeah, man, put it to those gun makers. I mean, does the total lack of common sense permeate entire bases of people?
Seems to.
You know, back to that voting thing you said earlier, where you said there were 74,000 unaccounted votes. You did the math on this basically. How many voters are there registered in Victoria County?
About that, not even that many, I don't think. I think we're around 50.
But with our last election, we had about what, 6,000 votes?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to think about how many registered voters there had to be for there to be 74,000. So we had like 1 out of 12. That's like 1 million registered voters, folks, to get to 74,000 illegally cast ballots. 1 million registered voters. Think about that. Well, there were places also, Ash, that everybody just kind of let this go by. There were places where there were more votes cast than there were registered voters.
Yeah.
Now, for that to happen here in Victoria, this is no exaggeration. You'd have to have 85,000 votes for mayor when there's only 75,000 registered voters. Can you even imagine? That's more than 100% turnout.
Yeah, I don't even think there's 75,000 registered voters. I think there's
No.
about 50,000 in the county.
But think about that. That's how many people there are.
How come nobody's complained on the, you hear all this complaint about the Dems that left Texas because they think we're, putting in draconian Jim Crow voting laws. How come nobody complained about laws that were changed to allow people to register on site?
Yeah, the day of. Just go register and vote. By the way, other states are contacting Texas wanting to know how we got rid of our Democrats.
Exactly.
They're saying, can you help us? Help us get our Democrats on a plane. Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea at all.
It's Friday. It was a free form Friday.
Appreciate the calls.
Again, happy birthday to my mother, Marion. Feel free to reach out to Mom on Facebook and tell her happy birthday.
Absolutely.
And meet us at Las Palmas. Now we're getting ready to leave here and go to Las Palmas.
Yeah, I do want to point this out though to folks because the sun's out and people. But Johnson & Johnson recalled Aveeno and Neutrogena spray sunscreens. They might have some cancer-causing chemicals in there called benzene. So you might want to make sure you're staying away from something like that if that concerns you.
That was interesting.
They had recalled.
I saw that. And Neutrogena, great brand.
I didn't think Johnson & Johnson. I didn't realize that their brand width was into Aveeno and Neutrogena.
Injecting that into you as a vaccine. Folks, be safe on the highways and byways. See you at Las Palmas now. Hope you have a great weekend. Ash is scared. I've got some